As I promised you guys, we're here on a Thursday at 8:30 Central Standard Time, coming live. I'm excited. Moving forward, we're going to be meeting at 8:30 Central Standard Time on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. That's what we're going to do moving forward. It could change, but be for sure, I'll let you guys know. I'll make sure you guys are aware of our schedule. As you know, outside of the lives, I'm throwing out shorts here and there. Hope you guys are enjoying them. Hope you guys are liking and subscribing. People told me to say that, you guys. But most importantly, I want you to get the information. It really does me good to know that this information is being applied on a day-to-day basis, right? You're getting information on a day-to-day basis, and there's already videos out there where you guys continue to soak it in, right? So welcome in the building, welcome in the building. It does me so good to see you guys soaking in the information, asking questions, right? That's most important to me. So if you ever have any questions, you're able to put those in the comments, right? If you ever have anything you want to talk to me about, reach out to me on LinkedIn. All right. Make sure you're connected with the community, right? Because we're here. We're going to nurture you guys. We're going to give you guys the information that you need to grow, right? To transform, right? To have better results in order to accomplish the level of success that you want in your life. Of course, I mentioned we're closing the gap. We're closing the gap physically, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, mentally, professionally, financially, right? These are all the areas that I focus on within this community, within my own personal life. And I want to come to you guys and share what I know, right? And if I don't know, remember, I'll admit it, but I'll continue to follow up, right? Right? If you have a burning question that I can answer, I'm going to follow up with you because it's not only going to help you, it's going to help me understand the needs of the community. Be that brave soul to be courageous and ask that question, right? That's that question that you thinking about asking. Good evening, good evening. That question you think about asking, somebody else thinking the same thing, right? So be that brave, courageous soul to ask that question. We're gonna be getting into questions pretty quick, but you know for sure, I'm gonna tell the story. I'm gonna tell some stories, right? All right. Now I want you guys to be for real with me. We don't need more time, right? You don't need more time. You just need a better system. And that's what we're going to talk about today, right? It's the LaFred effect, where we have real talk, we go deep, and we build forward. All right, you guys. So I'm going to tell you about my experience with time management. It started off in high school in a way, right? I had a frame of going to school, going to my extracurricular activity after, like football practice, and then after that I was doing homework. That was my frame. It wasn't much flexibility there. It was school, sport, then homework, right? Then go to sleep. Okay. So without having too much flexibility, I was able to stay in a routine that was suiting for what I wanted to do, right? I wanted to do well in school. So I ended up graduating with a 3.93 GPA and obtaining the title of salutatorian, where I gave a speech, right? And I was able to do this while relocating to 3 different states. I went to 3 different high schools in 3 different states, right? So I was on the move and still maintained a high GPA, still was involved in extracurricular activities, right? And that led to me accomplishing great things as I transitioned from high school to college. So that's a quick story right there, you guys. But it goes on to college, right? College, there's more flexibility, right? You got your classes that's not back to back, right? High school, they were back to back. You didn't really have much time, right? And maybe 2 minutes to get from one class to the next. In college, there was a good space, maybe an hour or 2 or 3 hours, right? And you didn't have the same class every day. You might have had a class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or just Tuesday and Thursday, right? It was a lot of flexibility when you got into college. When I got into college, it was a lot of flexibility. So I had to have a better system. I had to have better time management, right? So I didn't quite have it. I still want to do the same thing that I did in high school and college. I wanted to go to my classes. I wanted to get involved with extracurricular activities, right? I wanted to meet new people, right? But, you guys, that did not do well for me. Ultimately, I had a lower GPA, right? I was like low 3 point something, right? I was high 3 point something in high school. Now, it dropped down lower because I didn't understand time management, right? I had so much flexibility that I wasn't able to manage my time well, right? Now, don't get me wrong, you guys, you don't have to be like this all the time, right? Ultimately do what you want in this world. Do what you want, right? But if you got goals, you want to create a plan and work towards those goals, right? I know you guys are going to be asking questions about this because it's a balance. And when there's a balance that you have to have, there's complexity that's involved, right? Right. So you want to be able to manage your time well to accomplish your goals. But if you're doing what you want in this world, bravo to you. That's what life is all about. Living a dream. Create plans towards your goals. Exactly. We're going to talk about how to do that. If you guys want to know. Once I finish this story, I might have one more for you, and then I'm open up for questions, right? So, like I said, I didn't have as much of a structure coming from high school to college, right? In college, it was a lot more flexibility. So it was up to me to provide that structure. I started building on it. I got better over the years. Over time, you just get better and better at what you're doing. So by the time, my junior, senior year, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I cut out the partying for sure. You know what I'm saying? I had my fun. You got to have your fun. But I cut out partying by junior year, right? I was in a relationship, freshman, sophomore year, I might have, met a lot of different women here and there, but I started to focus in. And you end up focusing when you're trying to accomplish goals. You start narrowing things down. You start narrowing down what your fun looks like. You start narrowing down what your relationship looks like. You start narrowing down what you want to do, like, what you want to major in. You start narrowing that down ultimately to lead to your profession. You start narrowing things down. That's how you're able to have more time management. The wider it is, the more flexible it is in your life, that is hard to maintain structure, right? You got to have that balance. Structure and flexibility, have that balance. Like, I'm sure the most flexible people are like, some of the coolest people probably, huh? But you know what? I'm going to make structure more cool, right? I'm going to make structure and order more attractive, right? In this community, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Real talk. Like, if you're trying to get somewhere in this world, you're trying to have the abundance, you got to be strategic. You got to have a plan. That's what we're talking about. We don't need more time. We just need a system, time management, right? And this is going to be talk that's going to generate income. This is going to, structure plus flexibility equal balance. Balance is important. Balance is important for your well-being, right? Balance is important for the people around you. You want to be balanced, okay? Cool. So I talked about how, having more structure in high school, allowed me to do well, had a high GPA. That was the result, right? And then in college, I had more flexibility. I had a lower GPA. Hey, those are some indicators, You can use different indicators, but those are the ones that stuck out to me. And I walked the journey and I saw how I could do this, I can do that. And, I was the one to hold myself accountable. And over time, I got better and better because I wanted to have better results in order for me to have success in the future. Okay. We're reaching the 10-minute mark. I'm going to start taking questions a lot sooner than I've been doing before, you guys, because at this point, you guys are like learning my whole story. You guys are like understanding like, how I started and kind of where I'm at now. So yeah, I appreciate this question right here. It says, what are the best ways to prioritize tasks and avoid distractions? Okay, so let's take to where I'm at now, right? To where I'm at now in my career. First thing I do when I get to work is I look at my calendar, right? Because I want to see, how tight my schedule is going to be. 85% of the time I'm in meetings. But, when I see different gaps in different places, that's where I know I can follow up with, different things that I had planned to do throughout that day. Right. But a lot of times, the time is already, is already fixed with the different meetings that I have. Next thing I'm going to do after the meetings, I look at my schedule. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start answering emails. Right. I might be like answering emails while I'm in the meetings. That's time management right there. Sometimes you got to multitask. All right. So some of the emails don't need a response. Some of them is just putting them, organizing them in different folders. Right. So that's just an example of how I start my day. And I'm sure somebody took something from that. Looking at the calendar first, then emails. Because I'm sure everybody got different systems, what works for them. But I know for sure for me, doing that really helps me understand what to expect for the day ahead. Okay. And then avoiding distractions is, if you got a plan on how you want to go about your day, you already see your schedule, you already know you can't be distracted at this time, you can't be distracted at that time, right? Those are already full, right? And then when you're answering emails and stuff, you're really filling in any wasted time. You're like laser focused on continuing to move the needle, being informed on what's going on, and being responsive as a team player. So that's a quick example to answer that question. Okay, the next question: what are the most common time waste habits, and how do we overcome them? Okay, cool. So one way people waste time is not really talking much about their goals, right? Some people might waste time complaining or just talking about stuff that's just not as purposeful, that's not as success driven. That's the time that people waste, right? That's the time when they get distracted, right? When they're just flipping. So for an example, I just downloaded Facebook again to celebrate my little girl. It's her birthday today, right? And I already found myself flipping. Like, I didn't really care about Facebook, I had to delete it, but now I'm on there and I'm flipping. Obviously it might be something that's catching my eye, but I wasn't thinking about Facebook yesterday when it was deleted. So why do I need to flip through it today? You know what I'm saying? That's a distraction. You got to understand how these distractions you got to be real about. You know what I'm saying? If you don't overcome them, if you think that these distractions are just like something that you're going to enjoy, you know what I'm saying, yeah, you might, but you might not get nothing from it, right? So you got to understand if it's bringing you value or not. Like, do what you want, right? Everybody should do what they want in this world. We only got so much time, right? But you got to have that balance once again. Okay, next question: balance urgent tasks with long-term goals without getting stressed. Okay, so you gotta be good at prioritizing, right? You gotta be good at prioritizing. Thank you, thank you. If she was here, she would say thank you, thank you. All right. So you gotta prioritize, right? You gotta become really good at prioritizing. It's only gonna, like, over time, you're gonna have to become better and better at prioritizing. Do what matters first, right? And you might be able to make up for different things, right? So of course I'm on business travel, and it's my little girl's birthday today, and I eventually will get her on my designated weekend. That's why I'll be able to make up. But I also created a video for her, all her pictures and that we had together, and her by herself, and her favorite song, and she loved it. And I was able to see her put Lego stat building together, right, on FaceTime. So I was able to spend time with her and whatnot. And when I have the opportunity to be with her in person, we're gonna celebrate her birthday again. So you gotta prioritize. Like, if I don't go to work, if I don't do my job and excel, then I'm not able to provide for my little girl. Real talk. So you gotta prioritize. You gotta understand that you might miss out on different things, right? But if you do what matters first, if you take care of business first, eventually you'll be able to buy your time back in the future to where you can show up on even bigger events, right? You don't want to stay in the same place where you just, getting by and doing just a mediocre job, because you're going to be doing mediocre stuff and not being able to do what you want in the future. You got to plan it. Time management involves planning, right? Structure plus flexibility is balance. You got to balance it all out. All right. I appreciate all the happy birthday wishes from my little girl. Yep. Okay, what tools do you use to track tasks? Okay, so good question. So for me, I like to write things down. When I write things down on a sheet of paper, right, I'm remembering it through hand motion, right? And then it connects with my brain. Everything's connected, right? I write it down, and then I might not be able to get to it right away, but when I take a sticky note and put it in my notebook, then I know that that's something I need to come back to. So that's the first thing right there. That's one of the tools that I use, writing it down. I don't, think that I'm going to keep it all in my mind. I don't think that, because for sure I can't keep everything up here. It might be here, but sometimes I can't recall it, to when I need it. So if I write it down, I can always go back to it. It's hard to remember all the details, when you're talking about something, especially if it's something that you're not too familiar with. So writing it down really helps me. That's an important tool to have. Let me see if there's another question, because I could provide a lot more details on tools. But we're gonna have different things that work. People have it's different strokes for different folks, right? Somebody might type something down, taking notes and whatnot. You don't want to lose that. You learn that in college, high school, college, right? People might have been going to the top middle schools and taking notes and whatnot, but you don't stop that utilizing that skill, that tool. You don't stop utilizing it, right? As you continue to progress in your career. It's like even more important, right? It's even more important when you're building a business, to take notes, to understand what works, what didn't work, so then you have time to reflect, right? And then be able to pivot and make adjustments based on the notes that you took. What are some simple ways to create a daily routine that keeps you focused and energized? Okay, once again, my day is kind of driven based on my work schedule. So I'll look at my work schedule, and then I'll understand kind of what to expect for that day. Yes to the traditional of writing down tasks. Yes, absolutely. It's important. I'm going to continue to do that. I don't see that ever, being a tool that I don't utilize, right? Okay. A daily routine that keeps you focused and energized. Okay. So once again, I already have a routine at work, but let's say before work, right? In order for me to get energized, I might end up doing some push-ups. I might end up doing a quick workout to get my energy up, right? After working out a little bit, getting a little sweat, a routine of hopping in the shower. You guys, this is not like really like recreating anything, you guys. Like, a lot of these things we do on a consistent basis, but I look at it as intentional and meaningful, that I'm basically implementing a routine, right? That's part of being that's part of like having structure, having a routine that you consistently do. You guys, this, like, really, the reason why people aren't successful is because they're not able to be consistent. That's really all it is. It's not like too many secrets, really. It's about putting in those consistent steps towards your goals, and about having a consistent routine about what you do. It trains your mind to continue to do those things even when it's hard, right? So I'm really strategic about what I do. I'm really strategic about having a routine, having a schedule. Like, that did not go away when I graduated college. Like, I'm on a schedule. If you've been around me for 2 weeks, you pretty much seen my whole life. Literally, I'm at work, then I have a weekend for myself. I'm at work, then I have a weekend with my little girl, right? Now, for myself, it could be traveling, could be doing something spontaneous or whatever. But if you seen 2 weeks of me, you seen that, right? If you talk to me on a daily basis, you know my personality, right? I'm straightforward. I'm not really interested in changing too much unless it's necessary. But literally, because of my routine, people can keep up with me. I don't mind when they do that. People should be able to keep up with you. You don't have to be unpredictable in different ways. People who work well together, they anticipate each other's moves. That's how they're able to do this. When you start being in alignment with one another, like building a business, or your coworkers, when you're in alignment with one another, then you're able to get a lot done, right? You understand what motivates, each other, and where you need to hop in to cover somebody. That's important. How do you balance your work with the YouTube channel? Good question. Good question. So, I just had the opportunity to put a schedule together where my team could see where I'm, when I'm busy, when I'm available, and when, a meeting needs to be scheduled, right? They understand I'm a busy man. They understand I'm a man of purpose, a man of action, and I continue to move the needle, right? So we all put together a schedule so we can see, when our times align, when we have no conflict, where we can meet together as a team, where we can meet one-on-ones, where we can chat and talk, right? That's important. That's important when you have a schedule like mine, right? Because what I do on a day-to-day basis for work is important. I do in my personal life is important, and then this new movement, the able to balance that. Not only did we make our schedule known to each other, but I also hired people. I understood I needed to delegate tasks, that I couldn't do it all by myself, right? I could feel how it was overwhelming, and then the fact that I had a structure on how I want things done, I understood, okay, somebody and I can let them know exactly what I need them for, right? Whether if it's engagement, right? Whether if it's content, right? Whether if it's editing videos, right? I understood the work that was involved, right? I was like, okay, doing, these video editing, I learned a new skill, right? And then I'm like, okay, how can I improve the quality of the video and reduce the time that it takes so I can get more time back for my life, right? I know it's going to come with a cost, but I'm willing to pay it to get that time back. That's time management. That's how I'm able to juggle working, my personal life, and building a brand, building a movement on YouTube, and being able to show up to you guys. Like, I understand efficiency. I'm like, okay, I'm really good at communication, right? I can take these questions like an interview. Believe this is how I showed up at the interview. That's why most of the time when I apply to a role and my resume gets me in the door, once I'm interviewing, I usually seal the deal because I'm just that good. I'm really good at communication. So I knew, I'm the best one to be able to come on live with you guys, answer the questions that show up in the community, and help you guys move the needle, help you guys grow, help you guys transform. I knew I'm the one for that. I couldn't hire nobody for that. I'm the best man for the job. I'm the one to get the job done, right? I don't know anybody who can cover for me, right? Little lyrics right there. Okay. That was fun. All right. But for real, there's certain things that I know that I can hire out to other people. There's certain things that I know that I can relieve myself of. That helps me get a lot done. A lot of people do ask me how I'm able to get all this stuff done, right? Where I'm managing properties as well. I didn't even mention that, right? That's a whole other story about how I'm able to manage properties and be, successful at it, right? While I'm working full time, while I'm building a brand, you guys, while I'm being a great father to my little girl, it's a lot that goes into it. And you're gonna have to like really get with me personally to be able to understand exactly what's going on, because you need to ask some follow-up questions to get really deep to where you understand it. I'm gonna tell it to where I'm good with as much information that has come out my mouth, but you have to understand it for yourself in order to like, apply it to your life and get the same results that I'm getting, which I'm able to do a lot. I'm able to get a lot done, and I'm able to be successful at whatever I'm putting my mind to, right? Okay. How can you track your productivity without overworking or burning out? Okay. So I'm gonna just, break that up into, how do I understand when I might be feeling burnt out? Okay. So I'm reflecting. I'm reflecting about when I feel like I'm might be coming under weather because I'm overworking myself, overexertion and stuff like that. Like, I'm built to do what I'm doing. So I'm, leading with passion and purpose, right? So I have an extra level of adrenaline, have an extra level of motivation and inspiration to get things done. So, when you tap into your purpose, then, it's like fun. It's like you're having fun. Like me being in front of you guys talking, it's just like, somebody else watching TV. This is something that I enjoy doing. Like, I'll be having this conversation with somebody else if I'm not having it with you, right? And, the fact that I'm having this conversation is not only like reaching, one person that I talk to on the phone, it benefits me because I'm able to put this information out, put this content out, and it reach hundreds. And, a lot of times this is getting, 1,000 views. So this is reaching hundreds and hundreds and almost, thousands and thousands of people. And, for them to get to know me, for me to have an impact in their life, that makes all the difference. All right. Another question. How do setting boundaries and saying no help with time management, and how can you do it regularly? Okay, so I'm quick to say no. I don't have a problem saying no. But there's a lot of things that I say yes to. And the reason for that is because whatever I initially got involved with, like, I've spent 40 hours at work. So the 40 hours I put in at work, I signed up for that. So most of the time, whatever I'm doing, I'm going to be saying yes to, because, I want to like ensure that I'm bringing my best self, right? All that I can do for the team. And, early on, I might not have had the exact roles that inspired me, but over time, after sticking with it, I was able to transition into roles that are more fit for my skill set, right? More fit for my educational background, and more fit for where I want to go in my career based on my aspirations, right? So, and in relationships, another side of it, like when we're talking about, saying no and having boundaries, right? If you're, you got to understand, just like with work, I signed up for that. With a relationship, you signed up for that. Like, I actually, when I'm in relationships, I expect yes as much as possible. Like, I don't expect to hear no in much of anything, actually. Like, I don't really say no because it's like I signed up for it. And I don't really expect no to me, because if around me and I'm blessing you, I expect you to bless me as well. So essentially, no is not really a part of the equation as much. It's really like yes, yes, yes. How can I help you? How can you help me? We saying yes to each other. We saying yes in business, right? Okay, yes, let's get this newsletter out. Yes, let's get this ebook out. Yes, how can I help you? Right? You gotta like transform and think about, you do have boundaries, but those boundaries are already gonna be there. Okay, if you need help with setting boundaries, I can talk about that. But for me, like, we already have boundaries. We already know like what we want to do in this world. So I want to make money. I want to be successful. So I'm gonna get a job. I want to like build a family. So I'm gonna get a relationship. I'm already saying yes, and these things are gonna take up my time anyways, right? So if I say yes to all the things that's gonna consume my time, that means I am saying no to a lot of other things, but I'm really not even thinking about those things. The things that I'm saying no to, I'm not thinking about those things. The things like smoking, I'm saying no to that, but I'm not even thinking about that. I'm saying yes to being healthy. I'm saying yes to drinking water. I'm saying yes to eating fruit, eating vegetables. I'm saying yes to going out to eat and stuff like that, right? That's how I think. Okay. But boundaries are important. Okay, next question. How can you break down big tasks into smaller, manageable steps? Okay, so I have a big task of building out my portfolio. Sometimes you just have to be patient with the process, right? You got to enjoy the journey. Okay, so breaking, my multi-million dollar portfolio, right? Potentially $1 billion portfolio one day, right? Breaking down to small pieces is I started with one. And then over time I got another one, right? And then I'm planning to get another one, right? And eventually the one that I bought at first could end up multiplying into two, like that's how it works. And then that's before you get to the multi and mega $1 million portfolios and $1 billion portfolios. You start with one. So in regards to big tasks, you start with a small task. You do one thing first. You only can do one thing. You only can really only hold one thing at a time in your hand. That's the thing with the mind. You only should do one thing at a time. I remember having a conversation with one of my employees, and I was like trying to ensure that I understood she knew this one thing before moving on. That is so important. That is so important to be able to focus on one thing at a time, no matter what. No distractions. Be able to focus on one thing at a time, because that one thing is going to be able to move the needle. And a lot of businesses don't understand that, right? You got to focus on one thing, understand what that one thing is, and drive that to ground. Drive that, finish it, then start something else. Don't be having too many things going on at one time. Don't be having too many things going on in your head at one time. Focus on one thing. Write it down. Once you write it down, you think about it less. You write it down, you understand what you need to do. You write it down, right? It's clear. Okay. And you do one thing at a time. If I'm doing one thing at a time in different ways, right? If I'm doing one thing at a time, and I'm experiencing success, I'm saying that works, right? Because everything that I'm doing doesn't actually require my time as much, right? A lot of with the real estate, I did it up front, and now it's taking care of itself, right? With my little girl, that's a specific time, right? And I try to just, have quality time and focus on her for that time. When I'm at work, I feel good. I'm in the right place, right? And I'm mainly at work, right? When I'm building a business, right? I'm real quick at responding. That whole junk about delay and relationships and shit like that, like I'm focused. When they got my time, they know I'm right there. I'm responding quick, right? And then when I slow down, they know that I'm busy. Whether for relationship or business, they know I'm busy. But when I'm there, I'm there. I'm quick. I'm quick. You know what I'm saying? I don't think about anything outside of getting stuff done, getting the job done. Okay, and that's how you should be. That's how you can be a man of high value, a woman of high value, right? A high performer. You focus and you get it done. You don't play game. You get shit done. Whatever you want to do in life, you give it your all. If you're not giving it your all, you need to move out the way and let somebody else be in that. That's the one thing that made me, sad when I lost my first job, because I felt like I was in somebody else's position. Because I could see how maybe I wasn't giving, all I could give, especially if I, didn't. It was, ultimately it wasn't for me, because I'm way far ahead and I'm, enjoying what I'm doing. But if I'm a critic of myself as well, and I know for sure I wasn't doing the things that I'm doing today. Like a lot of times I'm saying yes to things and I'm like, I'm inspired. I'm a leader and I'm able to be kind in what I do. I'm able to serve. That doesn't make me soft, but it shows that like I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. I'm like committed. I'm passionate. I'm following my calling because I'm able to serve people as I, drive people to get results. I drive myself to get results, right? I pull people along with me, right? That's important. Make sure you're in the right environment to be happy people at what you're doing. Like those folks at Chick-fil-A, a lot of them are, it's my pleasure to do this, it's my pleasure to do that, right? People at Publix. Those are my two examples of people out in the world and retail environment that look like they enjoy what they're doing. And I love to see it. All right. Next question. How do you stay motivated and avoid procrastination throughout the day? Now, my team knows I'm procrastinating in different ways. If and different things, you kind of procrastinate with. And that's what's important, having a team to help push things along. I've also been procrastinating with the PMP exam. I just, it's just, maybe it's a standardized test that's, something that I'm really not interested in. People procrastinate in stuff that they're not interested in because they're doing something. Whether they're sleeping, they must enjoy sleep better than doing that thing. Whether they're showering, they must prefer showering versus doing that thing. I'm sure you guys have heard about people who went 3 days without showering because whatever they was doing was like more important. Whether being depressed, that was probably more important than getting out and enjoying the sun. Whatever you're doing, you're saying is more important than doing something else. All right. Hope that helps. How can you adjust your schedule if unexpected tasks or emergencies come up? I mean, you got to pivot. You got to do what's most important. You got to do it. I mean, literally, is you're only one person unless you duplicate yourself. That's when you hire people to duplicate yourself. If you got something, you can only do so much with your body. Your body can only be in one place at a time, right? So if you're typing on your laptop and you have to be at the hospital, you could probably take your laptop with you, but and while you got to wait at the hospital, but if it's so serious, like really you need to be in the hospital mentally with that person or with yourself, right? You can only be in one spot at one time, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, like you're in a particular area, you're taking up a certain amount of space, right? And it's hard to occupy too many spaces at once unless you duplicate yourself. How can you make the most of your peak productivity hours during the day? You guys, you guys are throwing out some really good questions. Really good questions, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Okay. How can you make the most of your peak productivity hours during the day? Okay. Um, you know, I heard that some days are better than others. Like, peak performance might be on a Tuesday or a Wednesday for some people, right? Because you can imagine coming off of a weekend and that Monday, a lot of people don't want to be at work. So that energy rubs off on a productive person like myself. Like I'm happy to be at work every day. But, um, some people might say happy Monday to get ahead of that. But Monday might not be the best day for majority of people, and then Tuesday is a little bit better, right? Wednesday is like, probably the peak, right? It's the middle of the week. And then Thursday it starts to go, people probably happy about the weekend, and then Friday the last day, right? So you gotta play that in your favor, right? If you know Wednesday is like the peak, you have that, and you might want to like, put a lot of tasks on that day, right? Because you're like in the energy level to get a lot of stuff done, right? And then Monday and Tuesday is really about focusing on something and getting something knocked off the list, right? So you have less to do, as it comes closer to Friday, the weekend. Okay, that's a tip right there for you. Another thing I'm gonna add is, when you have a task that is 100%, you got 0% to start, 100% finish, and you got a whole week to do it. You don't have to do everything on that day. You can do 10% on Monday, maybe 5% on Tuesday, then Wednesday, 25%, right? And finish it on out. Another, you might get excited that you're almost completing that task, right? So then you start speeding things up. And then that Thursday, you might end up doing 60% or doing the whole project and being done by Friday, right? Just break it up, break it up, break it up. And then, you don't stop thinking about it. You might not be doing the work physically, but mentally you could be thinking about, what you're going to do next. Okay. That's what business, right? I don't stop thinking. I don't stop thinking about business. And when I think about it, I'm making money when I'm thinking about it. It's just only a matter of time before I implement it. Okay. What are some easy ways to reduce time wasted on important tasks? Okay. Some easy ways to reduce time wasted. Okay. All right. You got to write it down. You got to write it down. And then once you have it in front of you, you have your day planned out in front of you, to stick with it. You can stick with this, you can stick with that, right? It's right in front of you. You should know what should be doing at all times, right? If you got a lot of flexibility, if you don't have a schedule with a lot and you got a lot of flexibility, that opens up room to waste time, right? You're gonna end up trying to fill it up with something and it might not be as productive. So having that structure in place really helps you get things done, right? Flexibility is cool here and there, right? But have a set time for that flexibility as well. So when you have structure plus flexibility, you have a well-balanced life, okay? I remember in high school I was shooting for being well-rounded, right? Being a student athlete, being, really zeroed in on making good grades, and then also being competitive on the field, right? Student athlete, being well-rounded is what I thought about in high school. And I was like, I want to transition that out into college as well. And I just kind of went a little bit overboard with being well-rounded. How can you incorporate breaks into your day without losing focus? Okay, I could plan my breaks around actual times that I need breaks. Like if I'm catching a cramp, that means that's a good indicator of a break needed. If I have to use the restroom, that's an indicator of, needing a break, right? If, I lose my thought on something, okay, I might need to take a break, because if I keep losing my thought on something, it like delays. So you're just really not as focused. So it might need to take a break, get away, step away, change up your scenery. Have you ever heard changing the scene, right? Changing your environment, it sparks inspiration, right? Changing up things allows you to be able to stay focused, and you do that from time to time. Hope that helps. What is the role of reflection in improving your time management, and how often should you do it? Okay, reflection is very important. Um, you should do it on a daily basis, especially like when um when it's quiet, where it's just you and your thoughts. You be able to reflect about what you're going to do that day, or maybe like something that happened the previous day that you want to get better at, right? You take that time to reflect as often as possible, right? You shouldn't be reflecting too much while you're trying to get a task done. You should be hyper focused on getting that task done. But when you have a break, maybe that would be time to reflect and meditate, right? And you don't want to get too you want to, like, your mind is going to like want you to do certain things. So allow your mind to do that, but set a time for it. Be like, okay, I'm gonna let my mind wander here for about 5 minutes, right? And then I'm gonna say, hey, that was good enough. Let's keep going. Like, literally, these are things that are like, how people have breakthroughs and able to get a lot of stuff done. You know, Instead of avoiding that thought, go ahead and give time for it. Obviously, you want to think about it, but set a limit on that. Okay, hope that helps. Okay, how can you delegate tasks effectively to free up more of your time? Okay, so one way that I've been able to delegate tasks is by hiring um, virtual assistants. So, hiring virtual assistants that are, good at what they do, right? Whether if it's editing, whether if it's engaging the audience, whether if it's ideas for content, whether if it's being strategic, right? How can we grow the community, right? How can we get better numbers? How can we monetize, right? You know, if I duplicate myself or if I delegate some tasks, it frees me up to be even more of a visionary to think about what's next after building a community, right? You guys, like, I'm taking information, right? If the community is, not showing up on live, maybe we need to switch to videos, right? That are pre-recorded. They're actually doing pretty good. Like, I'm putting it out there. I see what's doing well. Even the shorts, they're doing pretty good. The shorts, they come from this live. So I do like showing up live for you guys, but maybe I need to be strategic about what days I show up to be able to get the results. It's always something, right? It's always something to think about to be more effective, right? To be more effective, right? And then, other people, I ask for feedback as well. So they're able to see different things about how we can improve and stuff. And I'm flexible to be able to do that. And then once, I'm flexible in a certain way, to pivot a certain way, then I provide structure around that to be able to be consistent and to have long-term success. All right. Man, like, this is the live session that I've had the most questions. It's a lot going out there. It's a lot that we're going to be able to digest as a team to be able to say, hey, this is real talk from LaFred. Like, this is stuff that we need to implement. Like, this could end up, growing into a policies and standards that we abide by in order to make sure that we stay focused and drive forward. And I'm excited about that. It takes sometimes being on point like this in front of a crowd, in front of the world, to be able to have the greatest ideas, to be able to have the greatest perspectives, to be able to get out what you need. And I appreciate this opportunity for myself, even if it's just me and you. I'm here for it. Next question. How do you decide when to stick to a task and when to pivot or change a course? Okay. Once again, if there's data available, that helps a lot, right? When it's data available, it allows me to understand, what is more attractive and what is not, right? So once I see that data, I'm able to adjust, right? Have you ever heard of a Pareto chart, right? Where people have, all the different defects, right? And they see which ones are, the highest defects. They go after those first, right? When you see the data, the good numbers, the big numbers, we go after that. We go and put more energy and effort into that, right? And then, after we are doing that so well, then the next thing we see lower numbers, but we say, hey, maybe we can improve that to where we can get that numbers up. But the ones that's getting less attraction, I'm gonna be honest, the live is getting less attraction. So we can think about how we can create pre-recorded videos that are doing the best. Pre-recorded and shorts are doing the best. So maybe we can just go ahead and do the pre-recorded and then create shorts from the pre-recorded, right? This is me thinking, talking to the team, and, because they show up in support. And, this is something that, we can implement moving forward. We don't have to waste too much time and, When it's time to pivot, we pivot. We have to, right? Because time is precious. My time is precious. Your time is, the community time is precious. So if they're talking to us through the data, we got to adjust. Okay. All right. Next question. How can you use time blocking to structure your day more effectively? Yeah, when you block out time, that's you. You got to stay committed. You got to stay committed to whatever time you blocked out. I know most people can stay committed to when they're asleep. Try waking up somebody who really enjoys sleep. You got light sleepers out there, but sometimes they might be not as light that day. So when you block out that time, treat it like sleep time, you know, where nobody can really reach you at that point. You are in another world, you know. What are some habits you can develop to improve your focus and concentration? Good question. All right. So we talked about mindset, right? We talked about how the letter M for mindset is where it starts. That's an important building block. Once you set your mind to a certain place, and you have that strong mentality that allows you to avoid those distractions, right? That's the first step right there, right? That allows you to have more focus because you have set your mind to a certain point that it's not going to drift there, or it's not going to like entertain this or entertain that. Like, you have set it to a level where you can focus to then start putting in productive actions, right? And that's a lot about what we're talking about now, right? Having productive actions, right? And when you're productively planning out your day, when you're having time management, it's going to yield whatever your actions are, working towards. It's going to eventually lead to results. And right, once you get those results, then you reach a level of success that you so desire, right? Right? Mindset equals LaFred effect. Exactly. Right? Because, you guys, I harp on mindset because I really feel like, when you have the right mindset, you make good decisions, and really having, making good decisions is important. And I believe the decisions that we make separate us, from the next man. It's really the decisions that you make that set you apart. Okay. How do you handle distractions from other people or digital devices? Okay. I am quick to, let somebody know that, what they're bringing to me is not what I desire. Right. I remember, during the politician time, it was about, voting for Trump or voting for some other Democrat, right? I just knew Trump was in it. We done had a lot of different Democrats. Joe Biden, right? And somebody who was talking to me had an expectation about how I should vote, right? But honestly, I vote for what the people want, because it don't matter who's in the seat. It doesn't really affect my life as much, right? You know what I'm saying? However the game changes, I'll adjust. And I'm just that type of leader that, sees where the opportunity is, right? And then I let other people know about it as well. But essentially, they had an agenda on who they was voting for, and they was trying to feed me the information in order to vote a certain way. I felt it. I didn't catch it on time, but they wanted to talk about it. And I'm like, hey, we don't have a relationship to be talking about politics. I don't talk about politics. And I'm not expecting to have that type of relationship with you. The relationship that I want with you is in this manner. That's how I talk. So that helps me to understand, to handle distractions, right? How to handle distractions. I put people, I help them understand where they're at in my life. I've already put them in a certain category. And, if they, come out of that, I have to let them know. And if they don't like it, then I just spend less time talking to them. That's it. It's just like that. I really don't have a attachment issue. You know what I'm saying? It's more so like, I understand what I'm trying to get out of this life, and I understand what's important to me, right? I give more grace to people that have to be in my life, right? That, I ask to be in my life, right? That are my responsibility. I give more grace to that. I be more flexible to that. I compromise more to that. But people that, are in my life, they were in my life, we're mutual beneficial to each other, that's why we maintain a relationship. I still have, you know, an area that we can stay in. Once we get out of that, I pull away, right? I detach myself. That's how I stay focused. Okay. And as far as digital products, I'll delete an app real quick. I don't have a lot of apps on my phone. Even if I'm not using it, even if I have space, if it's not serving me, I'll delete it. If I get on it and I'm wasting time on it, I'll delete it. That's how it is. And I can't wait to meet more people just like that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's special. You know, now that I'm in my 30s, like I understand I can get more done. It's like I'm even more laser focused, right? I'm able to channel my energy and get more stuff done. So I'm excited to connect with like-minded individuals who are able to, understand where they're at in life and continue to put together the actions to yield results. And then those results eventually, I've retired once before. Once I retire again, maybe I'll be able to maintain it more so because I have other things to look forward to. Like I already created a structure of building a movement, right? Building a brand, like building more businesses where I'm able to occupy my time more. When I retired, I had a little shorter retirement. I did experience boredom. I worked myself back into a job, right? Not again, because I'm able to reflect and think about the things that I could have did better, right? So that's where I'm at now, right? I do more reflecting, and then when I experience something, I get that next door to open up. I'm able to show up even stronger, right? Because of the time that I take to think about it. Continuous improvement, that's important. All right, so we're getting close to the end, you guys. I really appreciate all the questions, how they've been like back to back, and it's really helping me grow. And I hope it's really doing good for the community as well. You guys, I'm like one of the best at what I do, you know what I'm saying? And, this is still just the beginning. You guys, what we're talking about is not easy for a lot of folks. It's hard for people to stomach what I'm talking about, right? Because, this is real talk. We're going deep, right? And they might have already like gotten enough. Maybe on the bright side of it, they might have already learned something and they're going to implement it right now. But another thing I know for sure, this is like no fluff to where you guys, there's people that rather talk about stuff that doesn't make them feel like they're not doing enough, right? They rather look at stuff that shows them that they're doing better than that, right? They're like, oh yeah, my life is not that bad, or something that doesn't challenge them, right? This is like tough stuff. So we're hitting a niche that's just like is really like powerful and potent, and it might not come with the high numbers in the live aspect because they're right in front of me, right? And I'll tell people like real quick if they're cutting up and being a bad apple. You know what I'm saying? Like we had an example of that yesterday. I could just feel that somebody was just not being in the right light, and like I'm in the light, and people that come around me, they got to be in the light or else you can't be around me. Like literally, I'm going to like make sure you feel uncomfortable if you acting up around me. You know what I'm saying? It's either because I can't move, or if I can move, I will remove myself. But other than that, I'll make myself known, and about something I don't like. And if it makes you feel comfortable, I guess that's just it's just how you feel. You know what I'm saying? But I'll just make you feel a certain way enough to be able to get you to move out my way. That's just because I can only take up so much space, and if I'm here, then somebody gotta adjust. And I'm not a sucker, so I'm just be honest. I'm be honest. I'm a leader. I know I'm a leader, so I pull and push people out the way. But as long as we're headed down the right directions, like I'm in a particular area of my life, right, where people are performing at a high level and doing important stuff. So that comes with a level of mindset that we actually have a lot of common ground on. So really it's like me catching up to learn what they learn and what they know, what I'm saying? And once I find my footing, then I'm like, okay, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm at. Okay, this is how I can help contribute, and let's go, let's go, let's go. And then people at that level at where I'm at, they're looking for somebody to lead. They're looking for somebody to get the work done, right? Looking to lead people to, and to where they can like help. They're looking for people that can help bring out the best in other people so we can all work cohesively and get things done together. That's the type of people that I'm involved with. So I don't really run into people that I have to like, really like, hammer down, the right behaviors. Like really most people I work with are really good people, top of the line, top talent, you know what I'm saying? But, I understand there are bad apples out there. And I just, if I run into somebody like that, you can understand my perspective. Okay. How do you stay productive when you're feeling mentally or physically drained? Okay. I get my sleep. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get my sleep today. I was thinking about drinking an energy drink, but I just was like, let me go ahead and push through. I don't want the energy drink to mess up my sleep pattern, especially if I'm not getting the results that I want from the group. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was, I'm going to tell you a story and we're going to end up closing it. I was in this one group, right, where I was a member. They promoted me into a leadership role. And once I assumed that leadership role, I started, pouring into it and like, bringing people to the group, for us to talk about finances. That's a tough topic to talk about. But, if I'm showing up, and I see there's a lot of people in the group trying to learn about it, I don't want people to just be sitting back and just watching. I want you to get involved and learn. Keep cooking, my guy. I appreciate it, Valerio. That's my guy. We went to college together. That's my buddy. Yeah, man. We here. We here, bro. It's exciting. So another thing is, I was in a group, right? And they promoted me from member to leading, right? I actually thought I was gonna be the one in the group soaking in. Like they called it, I'm gonna be honest, they called it Black Executive Men. I'm gonna put it out there. I joined the group and I was the one leading. When you hear Black Executive Men, I thought I was gonna be around a lot of executive guys and like, being the sponge and listening in and all that stuff. Literally, I was leading the way. And that's okay because most of the time, I'm in a certain environment. I end up, growing to a leadership position. You know what I'm saying? Because I got it like that, and it just is what it is. Like I love, being able to learn. I have several mentors that I lean on to like learn and get different perspectives and stuff. But in this situation, I was a leader, right? And I wanted people to show that they care because if I'm like giving information, just like I'm doing now, you guys, I was the same way in that group, giving information, right? I'm wanting people they're soaking it in, but I want them to show up, right? If I put an event out there, I want them to show up because that lets me know that I can continue to give in the way that I'm giving. If I don't get the right response, that triggers me to think there's something that I need to do. I need to adjust. And ultimately, I got disappointed. I expected to be the one receiving, but I was the one giving, and they didn't give me the right response. I got disappointed. Ultimately, they started feeling my disappointment, right? Because I was holding people accountable. They didn't like that. They didn't like to be held accountable. And I didn't think that was that type of mentality and environment. Ultimately, the CEO that promoted me was like, you're not making people feel comfortable. Hey, buddy, for one, you signed me up for this role. I'm giving that, but you didn't mention that I had to keep people comfortable. That's never been my thing. Emotional support has been like one of my lowest strengths. I'm a guy that's like, hey, let's define the goal and let's work towards it. Okay, what you want to do? Let's do this. Okay, yeah, maybe we can do this together. That's what I'm about. I'm about growing, right? He said, I'm not making people feel comfortable. It is what it is. I mentioned that they were soft in a way, and he was like, see, that's what we don't want in the group. Hey, if I'm the youngest one in the group and I'm making people feel uncomfortable, especially grown men, I'm making people feel uncomfortable. That's not something I want to be a part of because that's the mentality that doesn't make sense, right? If we're all about growing, that means it's going to be uncomfortable at times. Sometimes you're going to feel growing pains, right? And if you're getting it from a guy like me that hasn't been on earth that long, it's just they got too much more growth to accomplish, and I really don't have the time for it. I really don't have the patience for it. So that's the type of leader I am. Being a leader is tough. Being a leader is tough, and especially being a leader that I am. Setting accountability should be normal. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It should be normal, but a lot of people run away from it, right? And they try to make it seem like somebody else is causing the problem, right? But really, the light, it shines bright, and some people, they can't take it, right? So they can't take it because they have a certain agenda. And when they can't get their agenda through with somebody else, they just, push them away. And that's okay because I can start my own thing, which I have. And I started without, you know, I started in good, you know, good heart, good intentions, right? I just want to help people, right? Like I don't mind being kicked out of the group. That was like one of my first times. Like usually I get, you know, I find my way out of the group because it just wasn't aligned. But I was trying to stick with it. You guys, I was like thinking, let's be the last man to leave because it was other guys that was kicked out before me. I was like, let's be the last man standing. You know, I was trying to give it my all. You know, it sounded really good. I was excited about being a part of it. You know, it was a great story. But, you know, it ended that way for me to start something, to really have good impact and be a man of my word, be accountable and set things like clear, right? When you learn about LaFred Effect, you can go here and there and see what we're about. When you learn about Behind the Effect, you can read about what it's about, right? I gave out backstage passes for those who have helped me, right? And I don't expect anything else from them. They've already helped me enough if they don't help me again, right? When I talk about, you know, my journey, right? This is like real stuff that I've experienced and I'm being real about it and you can hold me to it. That's what I'm about. I don't like being a part of something that people just creating, they change the rules, change it here and there. That's not what I'm gonna be a part of. So that's essentially why, you know, it wasn't a fit for me, you know what I'm saying? Because that's just not what I'm about. You know what I'm saying? So now we have reached the end. I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate y'all chiming in. You know what I'm saying? We're staying consistent. We're staying with it because, you know, that's what we're all about, right? It's a LaFred Effect where we have real talk. We go deep and we build forward. Until next time, you guys, stay focused, stay grounded, and above all, stay real. Peace.